Good morning. Today on Spotlight, an interview with Michigan senior U.S. Senator Gary Peters, the Democrat from Oakland County. He's an elected official who has served on some of the Senate's most powerful committees: Homeland Security, Judiciary, Appropriations, and Armed Services, to name just a few. Not too long ago, he announced he would not seek another term in the U.S. Senate. But he's quick to point out he has more to do during his remaining time on Capitol Hill. I caught up with him a few days ago at our downtown studio. He took time to reflect back on his accomplishments and look ahead at the important issues of our time. It's Sunday, April the 6th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. He's a face you've seen a zillion times, and if you don't know him, well, I guess you aren't from Michigan. Michigan Senator Gary Peters, my guest today on Spotlight. Senator, good seeing you again.
Good to see you, Chuck. Always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. First time interviewing you since you made your big announcement, even though we've had a million interviews throughout the years. Yeah, you've had enough time for it to sink in a little bit. What's been the overall general reaction, and how are you feeling about that big decision not to seek re-election?
Well, I feel real good about it. This is not something that was done in the spur of the moment. Both Colleen, my partner, my wife, Colleen and I have been thinking about this for quite some time. And actually, when I ran for Congress, I always knew that I wouldn't be in Congress the rest of my life. That's not something that I wanted. In fact, I kind of believe what our founders thought of Congress is that you're a citizen, you go serve in Congress for a period of time, and then you go back to private life and let another generation, new, younger folks take over from there. And that's basically what's happening.
Sure. How much did the political power shift have to do with your decision, or did it have anything at all to do with it?
No, it actually really didn't. I mean, I would have made this decision regardless of who won the presidency or whether or not we had the majority in the Senate. I worked very hard as the DS chair, but the decision is personal. It's about moving on. I'd like to have another chapter. I'm not retiring. In the Senate, when you leave,
you're going to still be involved.
Exactly. You know, in the Senate, when you leave, they always say you retire, but people can have another chapter.
There is life after the Senate.
There definitely is, and I've got years ahead of me, and it's kind of puts a smile on my face. People say, what are you going to miss about the Senate? I go, well, I'm going to be 68 years old when I leave, and everybody says you are just so young. You're young.
That ought to make you feel really good.
That makes me feel good. It's like, but I said, remember back home in Michigan, about 80% of people are retired at 68. So it's just it's natural to do this, and I think it's important. We've got a really deep bench here in Michigan. A lot of great leaders. It's their time to step up and serve the state and serve the country.
And it gives you a chance to fly to the West Coast a little bit more. I understand you got a relatively new grandbaby there.
I do. I have a grandson in Seattle, which is unfortunately a long ways from Detroit, so Grandpa can't just pop in. But we'll want to make as many of those trips as we can, and I have other children, and there may be more grandchildren. We don't know.
You
Whatever
never
happens.
know. Fingers crossed.
Exactly.
Reflect back a little bit. When you look back on your years in the Senate, your years in Congress, what are you proudest of?
Well, I'm certainly proud of a variety of things that we work to represent the people of this state, and some of the best ideas that I get in terms of legislation or issues that we have to work with, I get from meeting an incredible cross-section of people. To me, that's one of the best things about public service. I just get to meet so many people, every single nook and cranny of the state of Michigan I've had the opportunity to visit and then work on. But some of the big issues that I care deeply about is manufacturing, make sure we have a strong and vibrant auto industry. And as you recall, when I first came into Congress, we were in the auto crisis.
Those were rough times.
Really rough time. We thought that General Motors could go out of business. At that time, Chrysler was also probably even in worse shape. Ford was in better shape, but would have been probably dragged down. So it was a very scary time. I worked hard on the auto rescue, worked with my colleagues to make that a reality. And then afterwards, I was appointed to the Dodd-Frank conference committee, which did the most sweeping Wall Street reform reforms. You know, basically what happened to the auto industry was Wall Street greed was out of control. It nearly brought the entire economy down. We needed to put in much tougher regulations and oversight. And I was put on a conference committee as a freshman. Normally that never happens. People said,
how'd that happen? Carl Levin have a little something to do with that?
No, well, you know, actually it was Nancy Pelosi's call. And I remember, you know, I thought I'd love to be on that conference committee. And they're saying, Gary, those are all going to be the chairs, senior people on there. And she called me in to the floor and said, Gary, I'd really like you to be on this commission. You know, you've spent 20 years in the investment business. You understand the investment business inside and out. I'd like you to be on this conference committee. And that Wall Street reform bill, of course, is one of the biggest things we've done since I've been in Congress, and I played a pivotal role as a member of that conference committee, so I'm very, very proud of that. The work I've done for Great Lakes protection is important. We just created a center of expertise to deal with oil spills in the Great Lakes. That's something that I created. But I'll tell you one piece of legislation that means a great deal to me, and that's my Fairness to Veterans Act. And this came to me from a constituent. I mentioned...
and you're a veteran.
And I've been... I served in the Navy Reserve as well, but this came to me from a constituent in Grand Rapids, a young man who served in Afghanistan as a Marine with honor and distinction. But then when he came back from that service, things weren't so great. He had a hard time. He started engaging in behaviors of people who are suffering from PTSD, including self-medication. And basically, he was then kicked out of the Marine Corps. And he had a bad paper discharge. And then he became a homeless vet, a homeless person on the streets of Grand Rapids. He went to the VA because he knew something was wrong. And the VA looked at him, they examined him, and they said, you're suffering from PTSD as a result of your combat service in Afghanistan. But because you have a bad paper discharge, we can't do anything to help you, which is absolutely outrageous. And so I went to work for him. We worked with all of the veterans organizations. Certainly turned out this is a bigger problem than just this one individual. And we were able to change the law. I was able to get that law changed to allow someone who has credible medical evidence that they're suffering from PTSD and may have had a bad paper discharge because they were not diagnosed when they were actually in the military, that they can go back and have that status changed and get the help that they need and certainly have earned, and he was able to do that. And I'm happy to say since that law has passed, last count, we're well over 1,500 veterans are now getting help in the VA system for PTSD that they got as a result of their military service, but wasn't diagnosed. The military now is doing a better job of making sure they're focused on PTSD for men and women who are in the service, so they aren't put in that position. But you know, these are individuals that serve their country with honor and distinction, and then because of the PTSD they got as a result of that service, were denied coverage because it wasn't diagnosed. You know, we owe a debt to our veterans, and that law is making a concrete difference. It's nice when you can pass legislation that you know will help people.
Touches people.
It touches people in a meaningful way, and who better than our veterans who have given so much.
All right, I'm going to let you catch your breath. We're going to take a real quick break. We'll come right back. I want to talk to you a little bit about the future of what you would like to finish up before your days in the U.S. Senate. We'll be right back with Senator Gary Peters right after this. Everybody says we've got to do better in terms of managing our budget. When you were in the Michigan State Senate, you had to balance the budget. Don't have to do that on the federal level. Do you believe that a few years from now when we look back on the current administration, the approach that they're taking to being able to streamline the budget, streamline jobs, streamline the federal government, that you may say, this was a good thing? Or do you feel this is the totally wrong approach to get to somewhere we know we all have to get?
Well, right now there's a lot of chaos. There's chaos. It's indiscriminate. So the firings that we have seen, federal employees are just across the board of what are considered, for example, probationary employees. Everyone was let go. And it doesn't make sense to do that. And let me give you just one example of that. Is if you are a superstar employee and you just got promoted to a higher position, you're now probationary. You're probationary for a period of time. So when you say we're going to fire all probationary employees, you just fired a lot of people who just got promoted because they are outstanding employees. What business in America says, let's start firing the people we just promoted to higher positions? It makes No sense whatsoever. I've been working on an issue to strengthen oversight of baby infant formula before it gets on the shelves. We recall the big incident we had here just a few years ago.
Yeah.
FDA finally created a unit after a lot of pushing to have better oversight of baby formula. The two people that they put in charge of that unit, highly respected people who are really going to do great work to protect infants, but they were probationary. They got fired. And now we didn't have, and for a while, we didn't have folks that were actually on guard to protect infant formula. Those kinds of decisions make no sense. You have to be thoughtful about it. I'm all about reducing cost and making things more efficient. We have to do that. The legislation that I've personally authored, passed, and got signed into law, I have pieces that have saved billions of dollars of taxpayer money, which I also have a great deal of pride in. I didn't mention that in the first segment.
That's okay.
But I've worked to save taxpayer money, and I've done it on a bipartisan way. We have to do that. But you have to be thoughtful and understand that when you're dealing with fraud, waste, and abuse, which we all are against, you actually have to focus on that and not just do it with a meat cleaver, broad approach that's not thoughtful. And that's what we're seeing right now.
You have a background with the reserves. As you look big picture in terms of America's security at home and abroad, what are your thoughts and what are your feeling about where we sit right now?
Well, we're in a dangerous world. There's no question we are. Certainly the Chinese government presents a significant threat to our national security, and we've got to be prepared for that. And so we've got to be thinking a lot about national defense and what the future of warfare looks like. That's something that I focus a great deal on, particularly when you're looking at advances in artificial intelligence and automation. The speed of warfare, the way it's conducted will change dramatically. The use of drones, these unmanned small aircraft that we have been seeing used very effectively in Ukraine right now, are changing the face of warfare. So we have to be much more nimble. We have to be much more adaptable. Those are things that I'm working on as a member of the Armed Services Committee.
Democracy, you know something about judiciary, the separation of the branches of government. Is our judiciary in danger at this point, or is it being challenged in a way that perhaps it hasn't been challenged in the past but needs to be challenged?
Yeah, I'm very worried about our democracy and the balance of power. You know, this is something that the beauty of the Constitution and what our founders thought long and hard about. Basically, they didn't trust any of us. They didn't trust the legislative branch, the executive, or the judiciary. They thought it was important to have counterbalancing, have all three. What we're seeing right now, because of the hyper polarization and the partisanship that we're seeing, is that we have a Congress and a president that are acting as one. So the only check on all of that is the judiciary. And we're going to rely on the judiciary to step up and call strikes and balls when actions are being taken by this administration. And so when the administration attacks judges, attacks their integrity, tries to undermine them, that is when you start edging towards a constitutional crisis. And then if the courts rule and the executive decides, I'm not going to follow the court, then we're in huge trouble, big trouble. And so we've got to stand behind our judiciary, understand that these are judges that are charged with making impartial decisions, thoughtful decisions. And when they make a decision that we don't like, we shouldn't impugn their integrity, try to impeach them just because of their decisions that they made. We have to stand behind that, and certainly whatever decision is, we have to live by it. That's the way this rule of law works. The rule of law is dependent on everybody in the federal government following the rule of law and understanding that when a court makes a decision, you have to follow that decision.
Senator, I need to take a really quick break. We'll come right back, and I want to ask you about what's in the future. We'll be right back. U.S. Senator Gary Peters, our guest today on Spotlight. Briefly, a lot of talk about tariffs. You know something about finances. Is that plan going to work in terms of back and forth tug of war on tariffs.
Well, I'm really concerned. Let's be clear, tariffs.
As we can look across the border to Canada.
And we look across to Canada, the impact for Michigan is huge, especially with Canada. We're one of the largest trading partners with Canada in the United States, the state that has the most business back and forth with Canada. And these are basically taxes, and it's going to have a big impact on the auto industry. That's what I worry most about. And being from Detroit, we're the site of the Motor City, you've certainly heard from our auto executives how concerned this will be.
The UAW chief says he's for it.
Well, he can speak for himself,
but
right now, what this will do is it's going to increase cost. This is taxes that will increase the cost to Americans. Even American companies here, they get parts from Canada, they get parts from Mexico, parts go back and forth. You know, estimates are could be a few $1,000s added onto the price of a new car right now, and new cars already are pretty expensive. It's hard for a lot of families to buy a new car, but as those car prices go up for new cars, that also means used car prices go up, that people pay more. That then means that when you get in accidents, repair bills go up, which means your auto insurance is now going up. The amount of increase in cost to Americans as a result of this is significant at a time when most folks are still struggling with high cost, and to have a president who now wants to impose taxes to increase cost across the board in this country, I think is wrong.
Do you think we're in danger of a recession?
Well, it's possible. We'll see how it is. We heard the president say he doesn't care if there's a recession, which I've never heard a president of the United States say they don't care if there's a recession, yet that's what Donald Trump said. I would hope that he would care about the economy and the well-being of Americans. That's such a cavalier statement that is hard to fathom. But we have to be careful. You know, you look at consumer sentiment. The gold standard in this country is the University of Michigan survey of consumer sentiment, of where people think the economy is going. It tends to be a leading indicator, and it is declining rapidly, and it's the worst it's been in nearly 3 years. You
were voted best senator 3 times in a row. Has that ever been done before?
It's been about 50 years, most effective senator, about over 50 years.
Okay. And the last person to do that was one of the Kennedys?
Well, the last person who did it 3 times, but he didn't, the last Democrat, but he didn't do it 3 in a row like I did, was Ted Kennedy.
Okay. How important has bipartisan work been in, one, achieving that, but also in terms of your approach to governing during your tenure in the Senate?
Well, I believe the only way to govern is to do it bipartisan. I just think that's the way that you get the best solutions. And it also means that they're more long-lasting. If you bring people together, find common ground, do it in a bipartisan way, that legislation is going to stay. It's not just going to be flipped back and forth depending who's in power at the time. So I've passed more bills that I'm the primary author of, the principal sponsor, than any other senator. Actually, the years I've been in the Senate, I've passed more bills than anybody in the Senate or the House. And all of those bills, with the exception of a couple commemorative ones, all of those bills have been done with a Republican lead sponsor with me. I always do it in a bipartisan way. That's what we need to see more of. I'm very concerned about the hyper-partisanship we have in our country and in Congress right now. We've got to get back to working together to understand there are differences that we have, but there's a lot that we have in common, and we have a lot of tough problems to solve. We've got to come together to do it. I've been able to demonstrate it all these years, and I look forward to continuing to do that in the nearly 2 years I have left in my term.
You still have a little bit of time left. You know, some people are trying to mark you as lame duck, but you aren't quite lame duck yet. All right, hang on for a second. I'm going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, I'll ask the senator about his future. We'll be right back. What do you want to accomplish in those almost 2 years that you have left? Anything that you've tried to do, haven't been able to successful, or just something new on the radar and say, if I can get this done, I would really walk away from here feeling good?
Well, there are a lot on that list. Continuing to do work for protecting the Great Lakes, which is always a passion of mine. We'll do that. And I'm now the co-chair of the Great Lakes Caucus. I'll use that position to strengthen and make sure that the Great Lakes continue to be healthy and vibrant for future generations. But also as a ranking member on Homeland Security, I've been thinking a lot about Homeland Security, as we talked about earlier in the program, how warfare is changing. Our economy, our national security will be changing rapidly with emerging technologies, from artificial intelligence to synthetic biology. You can go down the list. we need to really be thinking deeply about these fundamental changes that are going to alter just about everything that we do and our society in dramatic ways. I plan to focus a great deal on that over the next 2 years, and I plan to continue to focus on that, whatever that next chapter is.
Senator, they are lining up on both sides of the political aisle, and maybe even in the middle as well, to succeed you. Will you get involved in the primary, first of all, the Democratic primary? Will you sit that out and let them duke it out? Wait till the general.
Yeah, we'll see. I suspect we're going to have several people in a primary, so I have no intention to get involved.
You don't have a favorite at this point?
No,
someone to succeed you?
No, we have a lot of great folks. That was part of my decision to leave now, is we have a great bench, a lot of highly talented individuals. My view is let them go out and win the support of people in the state of Michigan. But then whoever emerges as that Democratic nominee, I am all in. We're going to make sure that this seat
You'll campaign for whoever the Democrats choose.
Absolutely.
Okay. But if a Democrat in the primary comes to you and says, Senator Peters, I really need your help to get me over the top, you're going to say, not getting involved in the primary.
That's my intention, and I've talked to many of them already.
They're already asking for that endorsement, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, quick final question. You loved your motorcycle. You have crisscrossed the state. I don't know if you got to all 83 counties on it, but I know you've done a lot of them. Anything special planned? Anything with that motorcycle or anything else that the people might be interested in?
Well, I'll do that again. I love my tours across the state with a group of folks that will join me. So I'll continue to ride. And I said, when I made my statement that I was leaving, I said, I'm not sure exactly what that last chapter will be, but I'm sure one of those chapters will be me riding my Harley Davidson on a twisting, winding road with the wind in my face and saying hallelujah.
Taking in pure Michigan.
Absolutely.
Senator, always good talking with you.
Good to be with you.
Best of luck. And like you said, we still got a little bit of time left.
We do.
All right. And I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the spotlight. We hope you have a great week.